During a recent National Model Railroad Association meeting, we visited member Mick Beanie's layout, the Beechie. This layout is a representation of the former Beech Forest line, which was once a 71-kilometre line that was part of the Victorian Railways 2-foot 6-inch narrow gauge network. The line met the broad gauge mainline at Colac and ventured into the Otways Ranges, running to Beech Forest and Crows, servicing numerous towns and settlements, mainly transporting timber and firewood, along with general goods and some passenger services. So the layout is called the Beechie. It's a result of Mick's lifelong interest in the Victorian Railways narrow gauge, particularly the Colac to Crows, then Moe to Walhalla lines. Mick's father Kevin had tinkered in 1:24 scale on O-gauge track and remembers playing with his attempts from a very young age. As a teenager, he started scratch building rolling stock to 1:48 scale, or On30 as we call it now. In those days he couldn't afford a brass loco and knew nothing of Ian Lindsay kits, and his father kept all the bits and pieces when he got married and left home, which he later incorporated into a small shunting layout. With the release of Haskell's NAs, this rekindled his interest. It was then he decided to build a forever layout in a new home. Unfortunately, Mick's father passed away before the house was completed, and this layout is as much a tribute to him as anything else. The layout room measures 6.5 metres by 6.5 metres, which is about the size of a double garage, with an extension along the back wall of 4.5 metres by 1.5 metres, to include the Beech Forest balloon loop. The baseboard height is set at 1200mm and is built using 90 by 45mm pine and a plywood top, and it's been secured to the wall in places and it's not going anywhere, as Mick can and has stood on the benchwork during its construction. There is a 75mm layer of extruded foam on top, and then 15mm ceiling tiles as the track bed, which helps reduce noise considerably. The tiles can be carved or cut easily to provide a good, flat and even base for track. With that, the track is Pico O 16.5 flexi track and points, which he fixes the track down using pins and then ballasts it in place. Once the PVA glue has dried, he removes the foam pins, so there are no nails holding the track and no holes in the sleepers. The ceiling tiles are not affected by the moisture and take the glue well. The hills are formed with layers of extruded foam, which is mostly obtained from packing or fruit boxes, carved with a hot knife or hot wire tool. So the layout depicts the railway between 1959 and mid-1962, when the railway closed. This era was chosen as there's a huge amount of colour photography along the line at this time, along with books and video to inspire the modeller. Colac is the starting point and is built as close to the original track plan as possible in the space available, as well as a short section of broad gauge track to the transfer sheds and coal stage. Eventually, most of the buildings found at Colac Yard will be reproduced as his skills improve. The line leaves Colac and crosses 2 lift bridges to get to the main loop. These bridges represent the track between Element and Jellybrand, which are not modelled. The section of track above Jellybrand is represented by the continuous loop. The line passes through Barnwell, Wimber, Dinmont and a private siding before going through Barnwell a second time. The mainline loop is controlled by detectors, which set the points onto the main line. One lap around and then it's off to the loop into Beech Forest. A train can leave Colac, travel around the loop once, through Beech Forest, around the balloon loop, and then back across the loop again, back to Colac, without operator interference. The total distance is just under 5 scale kilometres, or 96 metres, and takes about 8 minutes to get around the layout without stops. And the detectors are from David at Simply Rail. The point motors are tortoise in most locations, with a few points operated by Pico point motors, where the points could also be hand operated. Beech Forest is 11 metres long and is almost to exact scale. Even the sidings modelled are to the correct length, although the balloon loop is a tighter radius than the prototype, but there's always got to be some compromise. The tennis courts in the centre will be modelled on a lift-out hatch to gain access to the main line. The balloon loop is also operated by a detector and circuitry to allow trains to only travel clockwise. This also does the switching for the DCC track power. The station building at Beech Forest was scratch built by Dan Templeton and won Best Building at the Australian Narrow Gauge Convention. As well as that, the branch line from Beech Forest to Wirraparuna is modelled. The sidings here can hold prototypical 10 carriages, but that creates the same shunting puzzle as the VR crews faced. The guards vans were often pushed by hand into place by the crews or any enthusiasts who were available. The layout is controlled by NCE DCC using 06 radio cabs and a Wi-Fi tracks network. This allows mobile phones or tablet operation. The layout was designed to be operated as the Victorian Railways did, following the rules of the 1953 General Appendix to the working timetable. Scenically, Mick has tried to capture the feel of the Otways and the rolling tree-covered hills, pastures and potato crops. The red soil is from Woods Point, where he collected it in buckets when on holiday, which he then dried, sieved and applied with diluted PVA. The lower reaches of the layout around Colac have a lighter coloured soil, which is crushed mudstone from his house block. The ballast is actually from the same quarry in Kilmore East where the Victorian Railways got their ballast, which he buys from local garden supplies as stone dust, and again sieves it to the appropriate size. The river valley represents Love's River, where the railway crossed the river, and the two tributaries in short succession. The pebbles in the river were sourced from the Goulburn River at Woods Point, and the water is yet to be added. In collaboration with Mick, his wife Gabby has painted a number of animals and birds on the layout, and a couple of trout in the river. She offers advice on colour selection for some of the scenery when he gets lost. Rob Gosselin has assisted with the birds also. Phil Hellebrand has assisted with ideas for Wi-Fi controllers and is currently developing a Wi-Fi controller and testing it on this layout. There are also a number of Outback model buildings on this layout, including some that were built by John Hunter himself. Apart from several Haskell NAs and scratch-built carriages, the rolling stock is a mixture of Ian Lindsay models kits, including one built by Ian for advertising purposes, also many Haskell and Redfern NQs, to which Mick has been keenly awaiting 8 NBH cars from Haskell, which are expected soon. He also has several of Paul's 3D prints of carriages and Shapeway's 3D print of the Garrett Loco. With that, G41 is powered using Rocco 060 diesel mechs, with his latest addition being a Shapeways print of the NK1 Spirit of the Salts, which is powered with a Tenshido Spud and N-scale DCC chip. Mick has built a number of removable loads for the NQs, primarily pulpwood, which was the most significant traffic on the line in the last few years. Loaded cars run to Colac, where the loads can be removed, and empty cars run back to Beech Forest for reloading. Going forward, he plans to finish the scenery, which I guess can never be considered finished, and adding decals and details to all of the rolling stock. Mick has also started to design cards and operating plans to keep 2 or 3 operators occupied. So a huge thanks to Mick for hosting this NMRA meeting and showing us the Beechie. And if you are interested in joining the NMRA so you can visit layouts like this, here's what you need to know, at least in Australia. For the price of $40 a year, gets you a monthly online copy of the Roundhouse magazine, the turntable mail-out, monthly meetings at members' houses, just like this one, and discounts at Bunnings and Jaycar and more. As well as that, there is a national convention that happens every 2 years, and international ones. And for more information on the NMRA, I'll have it all linked in the description below. So I hope you've all enjoyed taking a look at the Beechie, and I hope to come back when it's all finished to show you all a bit of an update. So once again, Thank you to Mick, thank you to the NMRA, and thank you all for watching. We'll see you again soon. Hooroo!